There's a train a-coming. You don't need no baggage, you just get on board. All you need is faith to it be Susie humming. You don't need no ticket, you just thank the Lord, yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, hey, welcome to New South Christians. It's a new year, 2024, and like the song says, there's a train a-coming. Gen Z is, as I've been doing the research for this podcast, the thing I've been amazed at is how much I really didn't know about the generation that's been sitting in front of me. But I do know this from a spiritual level, academic level, and in every other way. I really think these are some real interesting times that are headed our way. And I do believe that this generation, good or bad, is definitely going to be the one that makes the decision which way it goes, which brings me to the person sitting to my left, Caleb Rouse. You're in for a treat, I can promise you. I was very fortunate to have this young man in class here. Now, he's an alumni, so he's already moved on from Vol State.
Yes, sir.
He's gone to MTSU, been very successful. We've maintained a relationship during the time he's been gone. It's been a lot of fun. And, buddy, he is opinionated, and he's smart, and he definitely sees the world from a different point of view. So I'll let him introduce himself, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Go for it, Caleb.
Gotcha. Hello, I'm Caleb. I'm a financial analyst for TriStar Energy. Grown up around this area my whole life, had him as my professor, and I was going to be a political science major, decided I wanted to be employed, so I went to econ, and I've been rolling along since,
There you go. Well, when you have conversations with Caleb, it's always going to be good. So let's start off with this.
Yeah.
So if you died today, what do you think happens to you?
Oh, heaven, 100%.
Really?
Not a shadow of a doubt.
Really? So you think you're going to heaven?
Absolutely.
Oh, really? So, well, describe heaven. Caleb's heaven.
It's really tough to say because the scriptures, as a Christian believer, I'm a pastor's kid, so that's something.
PK.
PK, yes.
All right.
It's different experience for sure, and so I can see it as just eternal worshiping God. At the end of the day, that's what it is.
Okay.
And so I believe it's just a relationship, and you can argue the specifics. I know that the Bible talks about there's golden pathways and blue waters, but really, at the end of the day, I think it's just consistently just worshiping God for eternity. And I think that's heaven to me,
Really?
I think it's
Okay.
just perfection,
Now, do you believe in hell?
I do believe in hell. And so I don't want to get this wrong. So my understanding of hell is hell is almost like a storage place before the lake of fire.
A storage gate.
I don't know if I don't know the exact.
Are we talking
terminology.
like a purgatory thing?
Not a purgatory, no. It's still like hell and the lake of fire, but I don't think it's the specific lake of fire. It kind of gets complicated, and to be frank, I'm not 100% the most educated on the topic. But to my understanding, it is still gnashing of teeth and darkness. There's an article I read, and I read this when I was doing my mission trip for 2 months, and it's called the Horrible Doctrine. And when you think of hell, you think of burning, firstly.
Oh, yeah, lake of fire.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But do you think about the darkness? Do you think about you're touching nothing? Because there's a lot of comfort we have by having our stable chair, by having everything. You are in complete
tangible
darkness.
things I
and
can
think
touch.
about the mindset of someone who's just realized that, boom, it's dark. And then there's shapelessness. The first is just denial. The stages of grief almost.
Absolutely.
And then it just turns to anger. And the gnashing of teeth isn't just from the pain. The gnashing of teeth is also from anger and frustration. And so I think of it as just like a complete darkness of burning and pain and just separation from God. Because at the end of the day, that's what it is. It is separation from God.
And that is hell.
Absolutely.
Wow, awesome.
Yes, sir.
Well, listen, this is great to have you on because I forgot that you're a preacher's kid.
Yeah.
So you have great perspective, and I'm sure you've seen the good and the bad, right?
Yeah.
So tell me, because we've kept in touch and talked.
Yeah.
We've talked about this podcast. As a young man, you've graduated, so you've demonstrated success,
Yep.
okay? And I'm sure part of that's tied to your spiritual beliefs, and then part of it your work ethic, et cetera. Well, when I share these statistics with you that we've talked about, like all the young men I've had on here, depression, anxiety, suicide. Then 40% of people in your generation, when they ask them, are you religious or spiritual, they call themselves nuns.
Yeah.
I don't believe I have a religious point of view, I have a spiritual point of view.
Yeah.
And 18% don't trust the pastor. And, just this kind of sad commentary. So from your perspective as a preacher's kid who's seen probably the evolution more than the average person, what do you think's going on? What's wrong?
So from the church perspective or more from like the mental health perspective?
I think both of them, because every young man, and I'd say almost every woman, has mentioned they anxious, depressed. Now I know we factor in the pandemic. You can't take that out completely, but all these other trends, more women are leaving the church than ever before, and they were always the rock of the church. And you see that. So, I mean, it's like the church, at least from the people I've had on, because this is called New South Christians. It's like, okay, a lot of these people brought different beliefs or values from other parts of the country, but you're born and raised here. But you've seen it like anybody else. So take it from a mental health aspect if you want to, particularly as a young man, and then also just, I don't want to say from your dad's views, because obviously you're intelligent.
I got you. I know what you're saying.
I need you to finger the church here without using names.
Okay. Careful with the phrasing. I'm just going to say that now.
I'm sorry. Okay. Good point.
Yeah, there we go. Exactly. Much better. So there's really, I'll start with the mental health side. So I've never personally really struggled with depression specifically. And now anxiety, absolutely. I think everyone to a degree struggles with that.
Sure.
I think one of the hardest things for me was loneliness, for sure, was definitely something that I don't think it's talked about enough. I know we hear a lot about depression, anxiety, but male loneliness is like, at least just from my perspective, it's very real. And like, for example, I left a public high school and I did homeschooling and I graduated early. And it's weird because you sacrifice relationships and that whole process of trying to graduate early and trying to do all these things. And for men, we're told to be ambitious and to climb. And I think it can become very lonely, if that makes sense, because you're chasing things that aren't relationships. And then that's just from my personal journey. But from more of like a macro general level, I think relationships are more, what's the word? Think of them as an inflation. The value of them have decreased. Because if I can reach my phone and I can talk to hundreds of different people, what makes you special?
Wow. That's
and like I think about it, like I always think about this back in my dad's era or my grandfather's era. They saw a beautiful girl, they saw someone awesome, they would go talk to them.
Absolutely.
Because that's the last time you're going to see them. There's no phone, there's no reaching out, there's no stalking on Instagram. That's it. And so every relationship, I think, becomes much more different in that from when you're looking at it from a quantity level. Right. And then you also got to think of the quality level. Like, for example, when you're looking on Instagram or you're looking on Facebook, you're only seeing their highlights. But all that you know about yourself is you only know your backstage. You only know your fails. You only know your bloopers. You only know what's behind the scenes. And so you're looking and you're comparing everyone's successes and everyone's things they're trying to show off. And all you have is your failures, like that you're keeping in the back of mind. And so you're thinking, like, why should you talk to me? Like, I remember very distinctively, it was the first Saturday I was in college. I almost had like an identity crisis because I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to I'm the best at everything. I'm like, I played basketball, I played chess, I do all these other things, play guitar, piano. So I come in, I'm like, I'm that guy kind of coming in. I was arrogant, and to some degree, I probably still am.
Self-confident.
That sounds a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. Much more palatable.
I like that word. Word. But there was a Saturday I was like, dang, I'm not better than anyone here. Right. There's nobody, like, what makes me special? What is, like, my value? Because you're looking at it from, like, almost a competitive level, and you're thinking, like, okay, well, he's better than me at this, and he's better than me at this, and he's taller than me, he's stronger than me, he can play guitar better than me, he can play piano, and you start really comparing yourself, and it really just takes away the joy.
But the thing that jumped out at me, there was another young man that was sitting where you were sitting. I had him in class. He was a good-looking guy, self-confident, great sense of humor. Looks like he's going to go to Western. And he was the first guy that sat here and talked about male loneliness.
Yeah.
And by the time he was done, I was sad. I was like, man, I felt sorry for him. And then after that, more people.
Yeah.
But does it surprise you? I mean, I try to project back from my memories of myself when I was at your age. Loneliness was not something that popped up in my at all. And with you guys, is it just a generational thing?
I think it's just.
Well, what went wrong? I guess I hate to say you're damaged, but what's producing the feeling of loneliness at a time when we were just talking in class?
Yeah.
You got your first full-time job, you got your first check, you could, just in your voice, you could hear the excitement and everything.
Yeah.
So I think this guy's going to have the same experience, but where's all this loneliness?
I think it really comes down to, and I don't want to sound like the very generational like thing you always hear. I think it comes down to like social media and what it's done. It's created a lot of good things for the world. I think it has, the spread of information is amazing.
Absolutely.
But I think what's it called? A negative externality of it is that it can create these, the harmful feelings. Kind of as I said before, like you get to see their highlights, but also when you sit at home alone at night, this is something like you still like. For example, I would study and I would read books and I would work hard and I would do late night study sessions instead of going out drinking and partying because that's not who I am. And I would look at my phone. I would see all these people out hanging out, having a great time. And I'm just going through my phone. I'm just like, man, all these people are having so much fun. And look at me. I'm alone. It's a Friday night, 11 o'clock, and it's quiet.
Right.
And it gets real lonely. Now, here's the thing. If I didn't have my phone on me, I'm just doing my work. I'm just focused on my work, focused on my tasks, go to bed, wake up, I see my friends. I think there's just something different when you see someone else doing something. Like, for example, let's say I handed you $100. You would feel happy, right?
Sure.
But let's say I went to 5 other people around here and handed each of them $10,000. You wouldn't like your $100 anymore. You'd be like, well, I want my 10
That's true.
G's. It's just, when you look at other people and you're like, yeah, I guess what I have is okay, I think that's a large factor to it.
Okay.
I think it's probably the driving factor.
Well, then let's go a different gear, then get to the church part.
Yeah.
So, in your view, why are there so many people that have these negative views of the church now? They talk about performance, that it's too much performance. There's a lot of people that say, I want a relationship with God.
Yeah.
I don't want you to talk to me about God. I want to have a true relationship with God. And a lot of them feel like it's been broken into a stage show. We do 3 or 4 praise and worship songs, and we do this. So, I mean, what do you think? You've been sitting on that front row for a long time. So what have you observed?
So I'm going to have probably a more strict perspective on this than most people will. I think there is a lot of validation. Like, yes, there are other pastors out there who are not great people. Absolutely there are definitely some. Are there bad churches? Absolutely. I think there are some churches that are just not great, that don't follow and don't worship God. There's tons of false doctrine. But I think we need to be extremely careful when we talk about church in general, because you could have 1% of the entire church make up the perspective of all the 99%. And I think a lot of us, especially as cultural Christians, is what it's kind of called now. I think we see church as more of a cruise ship, where it's like, okay, we want our ones here, and I don't want this type of, this is a little too cold for me. I can't go to this church. It's a 10 o'clock service, and I can only do 10:30s because I just can't. I need to sleep in more. It really needs to be a battleship. We're not there.
So you think we're trying to be all things to all people?
No,
It's just...
I'm not saying that, but I'm thinking that our perspective is, we're like, I think sometimes I hear things about like, well, this church is too early, that doesn't do this for me, or doesn't do this for me. And I think we need to be really specific. Why are we going to church? At the end of the day, to glorify God.
So what is this battleship philosophy? I want to hear this.
So I think it's more of like, we should be there to be equipped as soldiers of God. We're not there to come to and cater to our needs perspective. Now, don't get me wrong. There needs to be a degree of that. But at the same time, it's like, we're not, if our purpose there is very selfish, our purpose there is like, oh, they have coffee here, or they have these restaurant in the church and stuff like that, that probably shouldn't be our perspective. We should probably be going somewhere where we will grow as Christians, where we will learn to share the gospel. We are called to share. It's called the Great Commission, not
I was just going to say, what is the primary purpose?
The primary purpose of a church is to go together and worship God. Worship God, be a body of believers. The church is not a building. The church is the body.
Right.
And so I think that you're there to worship, and you are there to learn, and you're there to share. And church isn't supposed to be I go to church, check off the box. Church is supposed to be you live it out. You don't just hear it and go out one ear.
Exactly.
You go out and you share that, exactly.
Well, it's like the revival, the one that was up at Asbury,
Yeah.
or the movie that was out several months ago called Jesus Revolution,
Mm-hmm.
about the huge movement of God in the 1970s. Everybody I've had on there, when you talk about revivals, that's what they get.
Yeah.
You know, The Chosen, that's real popular right now. A lot of people see that as, hey, that's what I want.
Yeah.
I want to have a true experience with God.
I think-
and something that I can take from that revival and go forward.
I think a lot of people are looking for emotional sparking when that's not what they should be looking for.
Oh, okay.
Because I think, like, let's take this. I think church camps are amazing. They are awesome. I think everyone needs to go to them.
Right.
But I think sometimes, I've been to quite a bit of church camps. There's a lot of people who will make an emotional decision, but that's not going to last long. How long are you going to keep it up? A week? 2 weeks? Maybe a month if you're crazy? But at the same time, that's not actually, people want revivals because it's very emotional. They want that experience. They want that, and I get that. I totally understand that. But at the end of the day, it's like it's a relationship. It's not the relationship isn't built off one crazy long conversation you have one day.
Right.
A relationship is meant on, how's your day doing, God? God, how are you doing? Not like literally in that sense, but you're talking to God because the way we talk to God is through prayer, and the way He talks to us is through His scriptures.
Right.
And so if we're not doing that, and if we just have crazy worship and we pray a lot, but we don't read the Word, then we're just talking.
Right.
We're not in a relationship. We're just me talking and you just listening. I need to hear something back.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Well, if you were designing a church for your generation then, based on what all you've seen and experienced, good and bad, how would you set it up?
I think
Because, all these people that have been on the show, most of them have been believers. Now, there's a few that, they were agnostic and, they would rather go into the woods and participate with nature. They don't believe God as it's defined in the Bible exists. We've had the crystal people from California, the manifestation, and so there's been enough variation. And a lot of people are concerned that this Gen Z is so big, and we're in the Bible Belt, which is going from a traditional conservative Bible Belt to a redefined one with your generation. So some people are worried that you're killing Jesus, you're killing the church. Other people think you're the key to saving the church. So you designed the church for Gen Z that does what you think the church should do, that you just shared with me. How do you get them in and become part of that?
There's two ways to look at this. So the first way is you could look at it from the body, the church perspective, where, you could have more contemporary music, you could have younger leadership. That's something that I've talked about with my dad. We talk about what do you see in a church? What do you like about churches? He watches sermons online. So we've talked about stuff like that. Just saying I like how this guy is a really young guy. I can see how he draws. And then even then there's some older pastors that I enjoy. So, but the structure kind of needs to be, of course, you have your pastors, you have a good worship team and you have your elders and your deacons, follow under that. But I don't know if the church needs to change too much. I really think I think our perspective on church needs to change more, because there are churches around where I've been to my grandparents' church, and it does the exact same job for me that a contemporary church would go. At the end of the day, we're there not for my selfish desires. I'm going there to celebrate God. And share. I think COVID didn't destroy the church or hurt the church. I think it exposed and just showed hey, there's a lot of people just going there not for any real reason
so
for God.
Checking the box off.
Yeah, they're checking the box, and I think once COVID, it was an easy excuse to kind of just pull out and just not go anymore.
Yeah, but if you go back to what you just said, though, but how do you get Gen Z turned around to be a part of that?
Yeah. I think if the church has to do anything, I think the things they need to look at is, number one, young, mature leaders, leaders that will relate to them and understand them. I think that seeing someone who has lived in a completely different generation from you leading you is kind of hard.
Right.
I think having someone who's 27, leading maybe more, let's say there's a young adult ministry at a church I've been going to, and their leader's 27, 28, and he's a great leader. Because he knows what I'm going through. He's literally just lived it. And so I think that's extremely helpful. And I think certain contemporary choices, maybe not sing hymns all the time, but
Right.
kind of catering like, hey, maybe this song needs a little bit of electric guitar a little bit, maybe needs a little more drums,
Sure.
And so I think that can be really inspiring. And you can use those gifts that people have, and you can use music to glorify God. It just, you reach a hard area when you tell the church to change, when it needs to be, the body needs to also change as well, if that
Really?
makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's go a different direction
Okay.
then, because obviously I know you a little bit better than the other people I've had on there. So you got your first full-time job.
Yeah.
You're a nice-looking guy. You're feeling good about
Yeah.
yourself. You got a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
A lot of people, particularly young men that I've had on here, if you even describe anything about the potential for dating or where relationships are going or how relationships are formed,
Yeah.
how you feeling?
It's hard. I'm not gonna lie. It's hard.
Dude, you're the definition of successful so far and going somewhere, et cetera. So what's it like to be a young man like you, where you are now in life, trying to date? And the reason I say this, I don't want to set you up, is like last week we were talking about the statistics on the number of women getting college degrees as opposed to men. Men aren't doing as well. The number of men completing their degrees, not going well. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
it's like everything's flipped the other way now.
Yeah.
And a lot of men are complaining that trying to date or attempt to date, they don't know how to.
Yep.
And if they do, they're at the mercy of a woman's view of dating that's changed dramatically from mine. So
Yep.
how do you feel out there?
So-
How's it looking?
So I'll look definitely from the personal perspective. I'm not dating to date someone. I'm dating to marry someone.
Oh, really?
And so
Okay.
that's the whole point of it, And when you look at it with that lens, you become a lot more selective, and you become a lot more of like, hey, I want to make sure do they love God? That's the most important
so
thing.
that's
Do they love
number
God?
one. Okay.
Exactly, and so
All right.
that probably weeds out 60%, maybe more than that. And so you weed out that like,
Well,
okay.
if you take those other statistics of the people they classify as nuns,
Yeah.
I guess that's true.
So,
that
yeah.
that pot,
Exactly.
if your number one is they have to love God, number one, then that's going to eliminate a lot of people.
Let's say we get rid of 67, let's say 70%. I feel
Okay.
like that's pretty conservative.
All right, good.
So you got 30% of the available women out there that love God, which I still think is a really high percentage.
A generous
generous
take,
percentage to say
yeah.
the least. And then you got people okay, are they emotionally available to date, to
Good
marry?
point,
Are
good
they in
point.
that position of their life? Am I in that position of life? So then it's like, okay, now you're looking at the 5%. Because you both have to align your there, and then you have to come up with what are your right ideals. What do you want to do? What do you What do you aspire to be? Do you want to work? Do you want to stay at home? Do you want to? And so I think it becomes very difficult, and especially as I didn't really date in college. I was very focused on work. Now I went on a few dates, absolutely, and it was interesting to say the least. But
Is it difficult? I mean,
It was
you've
sometimes.
admitted you weren't a guy that
Yeah.
spent a lot of time dating in college,
Yeah.
but I mean,
It was definitely difficult. And at some point, I'm just like, you know what? I think there was initial fear of I need to date someone because after I leave college, there won't be as dense of a population this young
Right.
in my kind of age. But once I kind of said, hey, I shouldn't be rushing into anything
Sure.
because I feel like I'm on this time crunch. I feel like I'm doing this. I'm like, dog, I'm 20 years old at the time. I'm 21 now. I have so much time.
yeah.
And then I was just like, I was able to relax more. I'm able to focus on my school. And I'm just like, if the Lord wills it to find someone, they will. And then one thing we talked about when I was in Orlando was when we look at relationships, we need to have our relationship with God already kind of built. And we need to already have if you, for
So
example.
put him first.
Exactly. So this is the way someone described it to me, is that it's almost like if your partner disappeared, you would still be okay because you still had God.
Wow.
And so, if both people need to be in that position for a godly, loving relationship, in my opinion.
Wow.
And so,
Well, that's really
yeah.
good.
And so it makes it a lot harder when you do that.
Yeah, but you're putting your faith in him that he's going to
Absolutely.
bring the person at
Exactly.
the right time. Well, something else just popped in my mind. I think I shared this with you a long time ago. There was a book that I read during the pandemic. It was John Bevere's,
Yeah.
Driven by Eternity. And it said, that God knew when you were coming. He knew, the plans he had for you, the gifts. And obviously you're a gifted, talented young man.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know as you're getting older, and I'm asking mainly for
Yeah.
me and not so much for the podcast,
Yeah.
because since I had you in class and you're already saying now you're 21,
Yeah.
you know, have you found your calling? Do you have a kind of a feeling of which way? Because I know you're in this data analytics and everything, so God called you to be a data analytics guy, or?
I got a couple of things that I think are going to be really interesting.
Okay.
I think at the end of the day, like, I think my calling is to share the gospel. I think if we want to be
Okay.
specifically, if we want to look more
And the
from a
reason why
career
I'm saying,
perspective,
you've mentioned to me privately
Yeah.
these mission trips you've gone on. I mean, you
Yeah.
always light up. It's like,
Yeah.
man, you wouldn't believe all this stuff. You know, it's really
Exactly.
cool. So,
I think that's what it is, and I want to be in a position in my life where I can hopefully retire early, travel.
Yeah.
I want to just spend the time, raise kids. You know, I think that's just what I want to do in life. I never wanted kids until.
well, those are all
yeah.
blessings. What I'm curious about, have you found any kind of directional or something, or just the early signs of a calling that you think are on you based on your gifts, your talents, etc.?
I think I'm gifted towards music, and so if there's anything in the music industry, I'm going to be able to like help lead worship or help
Sure.
worship to any degree. I think God has given me abilities to always help. And shoot, I'm playing guitar for my church this Sunday, and so
Okay.
and the next Sunday after that, and so on. So I think I don't really know, to be honest, but I'm interested to see what the Lord leads me. I still have some more time. I can see that. I could also see being like in a finance position, help churches financially.
Yeah,
Help
through
churches-
the blessings
and through,
of being
and
good
through the
at
ble- and
that.
I think that's where the Lord really is causing me. He's given me the ability to understand finance and the ability to be very ambitious. And I want to give back to Christians. I want to support Christians going on things. And now that I kind of talk about it, now I definitely think I've met a lot of like interesting, wealthy people in the field and some other experiences and through mutual networking events. And I'm like, these people don't know the gospel. And who is reaching out to them? You know what I'm saying? So I want to just kind of be a light in that realm, I guess.
Well, I think the reason why I was curious about the calling is because one of the things Bevere talks about is that we'll all stand in judgment. And there's two. And he says in this judgment, it'll be, okay, well, this is why I gave you certain talents and gifts, Caleb, and I'm God. And this is what I called you to do. And that when you stand in that judgment, I'm going to show you what you chose and what I chose. In other words, if you had asked, and I had shown you the path to your calling, this is what would have happened. The fact that you chose this is what's happened. And I think that's kind of interesting. And the other reason I say that, one of my favorite pastors I've been reading sermons from is a guy named Smith Wigglesworth. Very unique. But if you ask your dad, any other pastors that have been trained, who's the greatest pastor in the last 100-something years, it'll be him. He was a plumber until he was 55 years old when God gave him his calling. And his sermons, I've got the whole book of all of his sermons. You should read these. They are the best I've ever. He was a plumber.
That's crazy.
So if he opens the door, I mean, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know for me personally, that's always been one of my failings. Is there have been times in my life when I saw you were supposed to go left, and I went right,
Yeah.
and I never asked.
So I respectfully don't agree with that. That's the way it's going to happen in heaven.
Really?
And so I think because that puts God on more of he's reacting to what we decide. That puts him very much of like we control our
But isn't
complete
that our
destiny.
free will?
And see, this is where it gets interesting.
Oh,
and so there's like
okay.
there's a big debate among Christians, and it's one of the things that probably isn't the biggest a deal, but I think it matters when you talk about like theology. There's predestination, which is like a Calvinist,
okay.
and then you have free will. And I believe predestination because in the
You
Bible.
believe in predestination?
Absolutely. And so I think, because if you look at the actual scriptures, it calls them the elect, God's chosen people,
yes,
the
yes.
predestined. It's going to be extremely hard if you can find any biblical evidence of a complete free will plan. And at the same time, that puts God proactive and not reactive.
Okay.
But at the same time, do we have free will? Absolutely. So
Okay.
it's interesting. We have complete free will, but we also are under his plan and predestination. And you may be like, how is that possible? is a paradox. I'm like,
It is a paradox.
Well, guess what? God is also beginning and end. God's 3 in 1. So it's not a puzzle to be solved, but a mystery to be adored.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good way to explain it.
Exactly.
Well, you would be one of those guys fun to talk about the tribulation.
Yeah.
Do you believe in this? Do you believe in that? Or whatever.
I got no idea.
Well, come on.
Yeah.
With the stuff that's going on in the Middle East, Gaza, the Middle East, a lot of people feel like this is part of the signs and wonders at the end, that he's coming back soon. And
Yeah.
people are so excited about that. And then, of course, in the middle of that is all this death and carnage and all this kind of stuff. So, I mean, these are very strange times, without a doubt.
And people 100 years ago thought the same thing, and the people 100 years before them thought the same thing. And the thing is, like, it's just the cycle of man is sin.
Right.
And I think that we're so emotionally ready to, man, let's start the rapture. Let's get it going. Let's blare the horns. Joe Biden's the Antichrist. Donald Trump's the Antichrist, whatever you want to say.
Okay.
There's so much.
And let's go.
Yeah, exactly. It could be 1 billion years from now.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Well, and that's the other thing. I've always tried to temper even my own enthusiasm or fear or trembling, is that time, eternity, you're the math guy.
Yeah.
Eternity means,
Yeah.
in the time that we've done this podcast, it's 0.
Exactly.
I mean,
The way I heard it is
Yeah.
like, imagine you took your whole life into 1 grain of sand,
Right.
like your 80 years,
Yeah.
and then dropped into the Sahara Desert.
Right.
That's eternity.
right.
Would you sacrifice 1 grain of sand of following God for the eternity?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so-
And that's in Bevere's book, Driven by Eternity. And that's what he does. And what he tries to encourage you to do is, ask God, what is my calling? What are the talents and gifts you gave me? Because when he opens the door to it, of course, he's equipped you to do it. And all he's saying is, at the end, this is what you chose. This was my plan. You never asked.
Yeah.
And
That's an interesting perspective.
Well, I'll tell you this. When I was sitting at home alone during the pandemic, that had a profound impact on me. And then, like I told you, we shared the passion for mission trips. I went on my first mission trip, Guatemala.
Oh, yeah?
And I got to tell you, that's still with me every day.
Yep.
It hasn't changed, And so things like that, I think is interesting. And that's something I always wanted to say to somebody sitting across from me here. The thing about your generation, when we have talked about something, there's a lot of people who have come in here and sat down that have been on mission trips, that want to go on mission trips. This group doesn't strike me as a selfish, narrow-minded, which brings me to my next thing. This is your big presidential election years coming up.
Yeah.
For your generation, this is pop the cork. What do we got? You're the great unknown.
Yeah.
A lot of people are nervous. They're like, gosh, this is that Gen Z that doesn't believe in God. Well, now here we are in the Bible Belt. They're going to probably determine the outcome of this election.
Yeah.
And how are they going to vote? And what are these heathens going to do? I mean, how do you feel about that? I mean,
Oh, I'm so nervous.
are you nervous? Do you
Yeah.
feel good? I've had people sit here. The young lady we had that came from Kosovo to New York and then Duluth, Georgia to here, her comments about doing research, and her generation needs to, not get off TikTok, but do the research on the candidates. Look at what they're proposing. Look at what their policies are. Be engaged. And she called them out. Don't be ignorant, short-sighted, and easily manipulated. Educate yourself and let's go after it.
Absolutely.
So how you feeling? Are you nervous about your generation? Are they up for it or what?
I'm kind of nervous, don't get me wrong.
Okay.
But it's interesting. So I'm going to look at it from the politician side first, then I'm going to talk about the people.
Okay,
so
go for it.
Politician-wise, if you actually listen to what they're saying, like you watch the debates, you watch them speak, not a lot of intelligent words come out from many of them. I'm not going to lie. It's just sometimes.
So you're not feeling good,
They
huh?
say nothing sandwiches. You know what I'm saying?
Say nothing sandwiches?
Yeah, just like it's like bread, nothing than bread. It's just like I'm not getting anything from this. But there are some candidates I'm really impressed with, and for example, I told you this before. Vivek Ramaswamy, I really enjoyed him. I enjoyed his speaking, regardless of the way he socially believes. I think economically he is so sound. I think he understands policies. He actually understands Social Security. Like, if you look at other politicians talk, they don't really, you don't understand what Social Security really is, how it's funded. Is it means? Should it be means adjusted? Should it be years added on? And so just like the technical side, I think he understands very well because he's in that finance world. And so a candidate like him who's younger is really impressive. because he is mentally sharp, he's ambitious, and I don't even care if someone like him wins at all. I'm like, it could be 50 years old. I just need someone who's mentally sharp, ambitious,
Right.
and loves America.
Okay.
And then that's from like the politics side. From like more of the body side, it is a mixed bag of people. Going to college, you get some of the best takes you've ever heard, and you get some of the most absolute horrible ideas you've ever heard. And you're just like, it's just so
are
interesting
you
here.
feeling good or not? That's what I need to know. I mean, do you think they're going to turn out and vote? Do you think they're going to take it seriously? Do you think they're going to educate themselves? It's the wild card.
I don't think they will. I think they're going to make an emotional decision, like all Americans have in the past. They're going to make an emotional decision off the few facts they've heard. I think
You think they're going to be easily manipulated by short TikTok videos?
I think we're all-
that kind of mind. I know that's what people in my age group fear the most.
Yeah.
If I could take a 2-minute, dumbed down, even fake TikTok and pull an emotional cord to get you to vote,
Yeah.
I mean, geez, that's kind of scary.
It's been around for every year. There's a professor here, and I remember him, what he talked about in his first day of class really shifted my perspective.
Really?
He said, at the end of the day, power is just your perspective. It's just if people perceive you as weak, you're weak. If people perceive you as strong, you have strong. Like what he said, like regardless if you love or hate him, Donald Trump, he's a great example of how he belittled his competition and it made them look weak. He delegitimized them. He made them look like not legitimate
Well, that's
candidates.
true. Yeah.
And then he was able to just
Little Marco.
Exactly.
Marco Rubio.
Yeah,
little
exactly.
Marco.
And Marco Rubio was intelligent, and I thought he would have been a great president.
Mm-hmm.
And he just belittled him and delegitimized him.
Right.
And so I think that plays a large factor. And I think that everyone is affected by manipulation tactics. But I do think with the rise of TikTok and the rise of social media, there's more access to information.
Right.
The hard part is what's right information, because you can have your facts,
Yeah,
and my
what's
facts
good?
and my facts contradict your facts. Both of our facts could be true, and we're just an impasse throwing random statistics at each other with
Right.
absolutely no idea how to logically deduce things and use reasoning to actually come up with arguments.
Wow. Well, so you're not feeling good. I'm not sure what.
My answer would be, if I had to say yes or no, I say probably not. It's probably not going to be good.
Well, maybe it'll all work out as far as that goes.
Hey,
All
fingers
right.
crossed.
All right, well, we're coming down toward the end, so I always like to end on a good note. So tell me, how's Caleb's generation going? If you were going to run for president right now and you were going to represent your generation, what's the one issue that you would choose and how would you solve it?
Oh, that is a really, really good question.
That's like 88 million of you. You're galvanized, you're focused. You're now 35 years old, I believe, if I remember correctly. That's how old you have to be to run for
Okay.
president. So you make it.
And
You're,
if I- and
you're
am
the
I-
final of the two candidates, and these are your people, and you can lead them to solve one problem.
I think the issue that I feel quite strongly about, Social Security.
Okay.
And I think
I was
that-
hoping you pick it.
Yeah,
Go for it.
I think it is the biggest Ponzi scheme in the entire world. It is a Ponzi scheme.
So grandma needs to be worried about you
That-
getting elected?
see,
Oh,
yeah.
my God. Here we
See,
go.
that's the sucky part. Is either way, someone's getting cut the week in the chain. It's either I'm paying my whole life and not going to get anything, or you're going to have paid in your whole life and not
Okay,
get
so tell me right here. So we're going to cut grandma off. We're going to disconnect her because she doesn't need a pacemaker. She's 98 and she's had a good run.
Yeah.
And your mom and dad, I guess they're going to have to be cut off too.
No, here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking a grandfather system. So number one, you do a means adjusted, which is like
Okay.
basically means adjusted means that let's say you're Bill Gates. Bill Gates, he gets Social Security.
I think he's okay.
Yeah, I think he's
gonna be
he's
all
behind not getting his $2,000, $3,000, whatever, however much he makes
Yeah.
from Social Security. So cut a means adjusted. So if you make over a
Okay.
certain dollar amount, you don't get it.
And I
think,
have no
you know,
problem. That's very
Exactly.
progressive. I'm with you.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
And I'm
keep
not
going.
I'm not a very progressive guy, and so.
I know, that's why I'm with
Yeah,
you.
and so
well,
I
keep
say-
going.
yeah.
How are we going to, that
Yeah,
isn't going
and
to
I think
solve
you
it.
slowly reduce it over time. I think like you reduce. It's almost like it is the world's. It is America's largest deficit right now. Is our Social Security. It's our biggest debt. It's probably. I think it's our biggest expense by like a mile. People think we spend a lot of money on military. Look at how much we spend on Social
Well, I
Security.
don't know, military. We almost hit $1 trillion this year, and we didn't even debate it. I mean, come on.
Hey, but we can always have more
We
guns.
love killing
We-
people. It's like, drop the bomb
Yeah.
on me, baby.
And we're pretty dang good at it, aren't we?
I mean, come on. We can't. We love guns. We've got more guns than any
Yep.
other country in the world. We build more than anybody else. We give away or sell more than anybody
Yeah.
else. We love killing and blowing stuff up.
Exactly.
So-
If there's oil there, it's ours.
It's-
Exactly.
Oh yeah, we have a right to it.
Exactly.
So, well, but Kim, come on, what else you gonna do? So you're gonna means test and
You're gonna means adjusted. You slowly you grandfather out.
Okay.
Because I can talk more reasons like why Social Security is bad. I think what's going to end up happening is that it's going to stimulate the economy in the long run. Because
course.
if you think about it, I think I looked at my taxes. Half my taxes were just Social Security.
Right.
And I'm like, I can't get that tax I can't like write that off in taxes.
Right.
I can't write off anything for Social Security. And at the end of the day, that money is going to just someone else. I just keep paying them money.
But it is going to be for the economy because what
Yeah.
I read the other day, like 70% of Americans don't even have $400
Yep.
in their account if they had an
Absolutely.
emergency, which around here with all the potholes, blown tires.
So-
I mean, that's, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And for many Americans, they haven't saved for retirement,
Yep.
and it's their only means. So,
That's
Be realistic.
Again,
Yeah.
it's very the hard part about the issue is that do you want homeless old people? No, I do not want homeless
no.
old people.
Well, that's what created it,
and that's
really.
exactly. And this was, I think it came around the FDR era is when he like
Absolutely.
started it.
Yeah,
And
the elderly were the poorest
Yep.
demographic group in
Yep.
the country. Yeah.
and they got a.
You know what's real sad though? If I know my facts correctly, now one of the greatest poverty groups by kids.
Yeah.
So we traded the elders
Yeah,
for the kids
and so
now.
I think the best solution, if you're going to have to do it, is not just a Ponzi scheme. Which a Ponzi scheme is basically you put money in and you get money out. Like that's it.
Yeah.
It's just like a group of people pay for the people that are going to be the money
Yeah.
is going to them.
Yeah.
Just thought I would explain that for anyone who doesn't know what a Ponzi scheme is. So what if we changed it and so we had like mandatory privatized 401ks? Like, So let's say we had 10 different government government regulated investment
Okay.
groups, and they
Now
would
you're asking me now I have to trust Wall Street?
no, not trust Wall Street, not trust Wall
I
Street.
gotta tell you, we're gonna have a throwdown now.
Yeah.
That's-
I'm not saying trust Wall Street. I'm not a giant fan of Wall Street. I'll tell you that. And it's saying my capitalist roots are kind of showing a bit.
of
I get
course.
that.
And I agree with you on
Yeah.
a lot of stuff, but
Well,
after the 2008 housing crisis,
Yeah.
I'm not sure we should.
The Big Short really,
absolutely, the Big Short, be
Yeah.
the big flamethrower. That'd be my book.
Exactly. But I'm
Exactly.
thinking if we come with the thing is though, 401ks don't have to be driven through Wall Street. You know, the Wall Street's not going to do anything about it. Like,
Oh, but it's all that money sitting there.
well, they make a lot of money through so many different means. They don't even need all of
Right,
that, the normal consumer amount. So I'm thinking if we had 10 government regulated bodies where they would like, hey, you're going in these smart yielded bonds, you're going in these smart, there's a risk ratio that you can look at, your debt ratio, you can look at all these types of things. And then you have a mandatory, instead of like paying money to Social Security, your money goes into this little savings account for you. And so by the end of your 60-year career, you're not putting money to go away into someone else's retirement,
Right.
you're paying money for yourself. And so then you don't have to trust the government. Because in the day, government is bad. I think in general, government is
Government
bad.
is bad.
Government
all right.
is bad.
That's a good note to end on. So,
Exactly.
All right, do you have, so the last word from Caleb is government is
Bad.
bad. Okay,
Yep.
so your generation's going to solve it collectively, right?
I sure hope so.
Okay. All right, well, that's all we got time for today. I just want to tell Caleb thanks a lot. I've missed having him around. It's always exciting. It's always energetic, and it's always thought, I'll think about a lot of this stuff later and then get angry and have to call him up. So anyway, thanks a lot for watching the show. Share with some other people. Hey, and if you want to be on the show, just reach out to me. Be more than glad to have you on here. So God bless you and have a happy day.
People get ready, there's a train a-coming. You don't need no baggage, you just get on board. All you need is faith to it be so humming. You don't need no ticket, you just thank